All right, we are on chapter 7, talking about persuasion. This is a fun one, y'all. All right, so the chapter's broken up into these three areas. First, we look at what paths lead to persuasion, and then we discuss the elements of persuasion, and then finally, and this will be in section 2 of this, will be how can persuasion be resisted. All right. Trying to get someone to adopt a belief and by extension to get them to change their behaviors is persuasion. Don't smoke. Don't have protected sex. Become a Christian. You persuade people with all of this. Myers and Twain suggest that persuasion entails clearing or overcoming hurdles. How do you get someone to not only, one, first pay attention to the message, but also to understand it, buy into it, remember it, because they can buy into it and walk away and then forget. So remember it and then actually behave accordingly. Those are the hurdles of the persuasion process, and this is what when we go through all of that's entailed in persuasion, it's all of this that you want to consider. So it's not just getting the attention, but understanding, believing, remembering, and then acting accordingly. So there are two paths to persuasion. We have central and peripheral route. Central route is basic. I already have some interest and I am paying attention to what is being said. So this happens when you come to class and you are already keen on being there. So you're not distracted. You're not thinking about something else. You're not, you're here. This is it. You may be a psych major. This is the thing that you're interested in. The message is convincing and then you accept it. On the other hand, if you are distracted and simply uninterested and your attention is piqued not because of what I'm saying, but because of some incidental cues, then that would be the peripheral route. And in many ways, when I've gone back and forth with the way that I've done these videos, it has been, I've tried to include some visuals and not just content because I, recognize that you may be here, but it gets distracting. And so you don't only want to see content, you're already listening to my voice. So anyway, we'll see. But when it comes to peripheral routes, this is the way that our attention is diverted to a commercial. Even though we may be looking at something else, not really watching TV, it just may be on the background. But a familiar song is playing, something that you liked, or you hear a voice of a personality that you connect with, you follow, and then you actually now pay attention. And not necessarily listen to the message, but you may actually be inclined to do what they're asking you to do, which is buy something, sign up for something, go on a website, whatever. And that is because of these peripheral cues. Similarly, if you're scrolling through Facebook or IG and a photo catches your image, you may not actually read the text that's on it, but it may say click here and you do, and it's because maybe the dress that the person is wearing is pretty, or the car that is being featured has something that you find attractive, and so okay, now you're interested. So when people think carefully, they rely not just on persuasive appeals, but on their own thoughts and response. And so the central route processing can swiftly change explicit attitudes because you are paying attention, somebody's giving you a message, you are already interested, you receive it, boom, all right. So I'm listening to Dr. Jones. Dr. Jones says this, okay, fine. However, if we are completely honest with ourselves and we are trying to be in this class, central route, it just really takes more time. So I have to do so much explaining. I have to present the evidence, the facts, kind of create a whole case. It has to be, thoughtful in the sense of, what the message is and making sense and logic. However, you may get started in that way and then you're like, it's taking too long. Let me throw something in here that's going to keep their attention, that's going to distract them, that's going to get them to not necessarily have to think about it, but they are in favor of it because it appeals to them. And so oftentimes we take the peripheral route because it is quicker. And then we can lean on things like beauty and attractiveness and any other side message that is going to be used to help with decision making. Interestingly enough, research has shown that when a speaker is articulate and appealing, has what we would call, I guess, apparently good motives, and has several arguments, we usually take the easy peripheral route. As you can imagine, or you may have experienced, central route approach to persuasion has decreased in recent years. Everything is now based on emotion. Emotion-based appeals are just more effective for, if you think about any number of products, play on one's emotions, what you feel, what you think, how you like yourself, how you don't like yourself. That gets people to buy in more than actually just getting their attention and presenting hardcore facts. Okay, so now there are 4 ingredients to persuasion, and it's essentially answering who says what, by what method, and to whom. So we're going to look at who says, which is the communicator, what, the message, by what method, so how is this message communicated, and then the audience. One important characteristic of the communicator is credibility or believability. So who is speaking is super important. Credible communicator is perceived as both expert and trustworthy, although the effects of the source credibility does diminish over time. Now, the sleeper effect occurs when you receive a message. You may have discounted it because you're like, psh, that's bogus, whether it's bogus because the person who said it you don't trust, or because it just seemed bogus to you. You walk away, you come back maybe a month, 2, whatever later, even next year, and you remember the message. So the message actually stuck with you. And because the message stuck with you, you're inclined to actually, acquiesce to whatever it is that the message is asking. And you cannot remember why it was that you discounted it. So, you're like, wow, I remember when they said that. And I remember not believing them, but I don't know why I didn't believe them. But now you actually remember the message and you do believe. Well, yeah, okay, sleeper effect. Now, credibility, I said already, it's affected by perceived expertise, speaking style, and perceived trustworthiness. Myers and Twin suggests that to become an expert when you are speaking, you want to start with information that the audience already agrees with, because we are going to feel like you are smart if we are already nodding our heads in agreement. And then, of course, there's always the traditional credentials and status. I like to tell people I learned really quickly after coming home, after completing my PhD, the power of doctor in front of my name. I'm Giavana Jones, and people are like, "Oh, okay," particularly because I don't have any influence beyond. I don't have much influence generally. However, I introduced myself as Dr. Giavana Jones, and immediately people stop, look, listen for whatever reason. I have so many funny stories of this already. But it's funny, but nowadays, looking credible is easy. You have a good graphic designer, or you know how to use, Adobe, and you can make yourself look good. Nice logo, beautiful website, some flyers, and you look like an expert in it. To also seem credible, though, you should also be aware of your speech patterns. Speaking confidently and fluently does weigh in when others are assessing your expertise in the area. You want to, of course, avoid ums, uhs, those space fillers that make you seem like you're uncertain and you're unsure. And then you also want to not end your statements with a voice that's higher. Let me see how to explain this. And this was pointed out to us when we were in grad school, and it was pointed out by a professor, and she really spoke to us women, and she said we tend to do this. We're like, we make a statement and then we end and we're like, we're not sure. Our voice gets higher, and your voice gets higher naturally when you're asking a question, but it shouldn't be if you're making a statement. Anyway, so the final characteristic is perceived trustworthiness, and we are simply just more likely to listen to someone we trust. As you think about this, you may even come to mind right now. Have you been inclined to believe something simply because you trust the person who said it. So, you didn't give it a second thought. You may have shared a Facebook post. You may have actually shared a WhatsApp message without even thinking because, oh, okay, this came from mommy, or this came from my pastor, or this came from my mentor. And you don't even question because it's like, well, okay, they gave it to me, so I can trust them. Now, whether we like to believe it or not, the attractiveness of the person giving the message is important. Appealing communicators, often similar to audience, are most persuasive in matters of subject preference. Now, you have to keep in mind, though, that attractive could be physical, what we normally think of attractiveness. Somebody is not, beautiful. We deem them beautiful, but also in similarity. So, an ad with a black person that is targeting Bahamians is going to appeal to us faster for the majority of us who identify as black, as compared to an ad that has a white person, even if the white person is what we deem as extremely beautiful. So it's not just beauty attractiveness, but it's similarity. Okay, and then finally in your text, they cover the 6 persuasion principles. In his book Science and Practice, Robert Cialdini illustrates 6 principles that underlie human relationships and human influences. In our chapter, we cover the first 2, and so that's authority. We defer, and I've mentioned it already, to people who we deem as credible experts. So you establish your expertise, you identify problems you've solved and people you have served. The text talks about the difference between somebody taking a call and saying, okay, I'm going to transfer you to Craig Jones, or you say, okay, I'm going to transfer you to Craig Jones, who has been with the company for 7 years and is leading in the industry as it relates to real estate sales. And so you are the person who's calling, and you're getting transferred to Craig Jones, and you're like, oh, okay, you're getting transferred to Craig Jones, and you're trying to sell your house, and he is been with the company for 7 years, but is still leading in the field. You're going to feel more confident. You're going to feel more connected. Liking. We, as humans, we just definitely we respond more to people who we like. It's basic. Social proof. You want to use the connections that you have, and people who are influencers, and this is why influencers now in social media is so popular, in order to get people to buy into whether it's your product, your promotion, your project, whatever it is. Find the people that others look up to, let them be the ones that lead the way on it. Reciprocity. We want to be able to repay when we feel we've been given something. So if you're generous, it's going to come back to you. Consistency and scarcity. I'm just going to talk about scarcity right now because I don't know if you realize it, but people prize what is scarce. And so that's where we play on this element of exclusivity. There's only 4 seats. Are you willing to take? Are you interested in taking one of them, as compared to there's 400 seats? Now, 400 seats may seem like a lot compared to 4 seats, but 400 seats, if that's it, and it's by somebody who's already deemed themselves, then you may want to be one of the 400. So, it's playing on it, but you want to, if you're presenting product or an opportunity and want to feel like, yeah, that it is valuable, then make it unavailable or seem unavailable, and value increases. Okay, so we are going to stop right here. I'm going to put the bulk of everything else in the second half of this chapter. So there we'll talk about the message, what is being said, how it's being said. Okay?